Welcome to Commander Central, episode 293. We're back with another installment of the Decks You Play series. Today we'll be looking at Patreon supporter Ravis's Ishai and Eligeth Flying and Scrying deck. I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.
Chris, happy Friday. How you doing, buddy?
I am dead to the world.
Oh, it's pre-release season, isn't it?
Yes, and pre-releases suck. I mean, they're awesome to play in, don't get me wrong. But being on the other side of it, takes a lot of energy and effort to do everything.
Oh, I'm sure, I'm happy that we have a spot. How many pre-releases for Crimson Valley is the shop doing? 4?
So we have 2 tonight. We have 4 or 5 tomorrow, and then 3 or 4 on Sunday. So
10. We'll just say 10.
It's quite a few of them. Every 4 hours, it seems like we're having one, so.
That's, yeah, I can understand how that would get tiring. I know back in the day when we would do those marathon, let's just go play every event on a Saturday type of thing, you get tired playing, but I never really thought about it from the other side. So keep your energy up, keep water, protein, you can do it. I believe in you.
We were also in our mid-20s back then.
Oh, don't even. We're about to get older, Chris. You and I have birthdays coming up.
I know. Oh, it's going to be wonderful.
Well, so you've been working pre-releases and prepping for them. I really haven't played much Magic. Have you gotten any games in?
I played a game with another new person, who is a Pokemon player, who is really, really enjoying Magic. He's enjoying all the intricacies and the, little weird random things you can do with stuff. And I ended up playing my Spiders deck with it. I am officially, I think I have 6 wins and 1 loss with that deck, and I still have yet to tweak it. So I might just leave it. But he was playing the new red-green dragon dinosaur guy from AFR that whenever he's dealt damage, you make a token or something like that.
Oh, yeah, and then this token gets sacrificed or something like that.
Yep. And we've been giving him little cards, hey, this card's really good. You should try this in your deck. And, I bought him a sneak attack last night because he's playing, big dragons and stuff in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then I'm telling him, little weird intricacies of it. And I'm like, so, you could sneak attack with your dragon, sacrifice it to Birthing Pod, go for this. And he's like, I never thought about that. I was like, oh, no, what am I doing?
I was going to say, what have you done, Chris? That's, wow.
No, he's really liking the game. And I wouldn't say that his deck's overpowered. We're giving him cards to make it more powerful so we can start playing our higher tier decks.
Right.
But we're not making it, giving him, we told him about the Savage Vampa Infant combo and that stuff, and he's like, oh, I don't want to do anything like that. He's like, I just want, cool things I can do, a million things on my turn, but not go infinite, but where it's just, I can do this, this, and this, and this, and I got to decide which route I need to take. So that's what we're trying to do for him.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you guys are definitely not saying, okay, you started at step 0 and we're going to kick you up to step 100. It's a very steady progress in how that deck is getting tuned up.
Yeah, it seems like every time we play, we end up suggesting a new card for him to try in the deck. I think he put Warstorm Surge or something in it the other day and stuff like that too. So, and they ended up playing Plane Chase one night. And apparently that commander reads something about whenever you roll a die, it deals a damage to him or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and you just roll the plane. Oh
yes.
My gosh.
None of them realized that until they started playing. And he's like, so it says when I roll a die, does this count? So they started looking at rules, and they're like, yeah. And he's like, okay, let's start doing this.
That's awesome.
So, yep, that's been my Magic experiences as of lately, so.
Nice. Well, if you want to reach out to us and tell us about any cool games you've been playing, or any sweet cards you pull in the pre-release, how would they do that, Chris?
Well, you can reach us on a multitude of social media platforms. You can find us on Twitter at CMDR Central. You can search us up on Facebook, CMDR Central. You can find us on YouTube by searching CMDR Central. You can also find us on CMDRCentral.com.
You can also head over to patreon.com/CMDR Central. Check out our reward tiers such as a Decks You Play show, or joining our community to chat with us and play some virtual EDH. Our community right now also has a Secret Santa Commander deck list exchange going on. The sign-up ends on November 22nd, so just a week away. So if you support us on Patreon, you get access to our chat. You can sign up for this deck exchange, and this is how it works. You fill out the Google form, you provide 3 commanders that you would want someone to build a deck list for you, and then everyone will get someone else's list of commanders. You have to build that person a $50 commander deck, including the commander and the basic lands, and all you're doing is building the list, and then at a certain date, I believe it's after December 25th, the list will be exchanged to your Secret Santa partner, and then, they get to go along and build the deck if they want. The reason we're only doing lists is because building a deck and shipping it during the holidays can cause a lot of confusion, and things get lost in the mail, especially with COVID still being around, so that's why we're only doing deck lists. So if you want to participate, just support us on Patreon, and head over to our Community Challenges channel, and you can sign up by November 22nd. So last week we announced some contest winners for the playmats and the Commander Collection Green. And so this month we're going to kick off a Patreon contest that will go through the end of the year. This is more of a holiday giveaway. So if you support us on Patreon by the end of the year, so we'll do this drawing in January, we are giving away 2 prizes. One being a Plane Chase Anthology, and the second being a From the Vault Transformed.
Ooh.
So 2 lucky people, as long as you support us by the end of December, will be winning those, and we'll get those shipped out come the new year.
Sweet. That is awesome. Plane Chase is so much fun.
It is, and especially with EDH, as long as, everybody is key to do it. Like, sometimes I'm not in the mood for Plane Chase EDH, but sometimes it's a lot of fun.
Yep. I am going to let everyone know, too, that the Plane Chase is sealed in package. So it's not like it's been opened or used or anything. It's still brand new, sealed in package. So that's something to keep in mind.
I'm pretty sure my From the Vault is, too, because it still has the white cardboard box around it.
Okay. Well, that works. Sweetness.
Awesome.
I can't wait to hear who wins and how much fun they have with it.
I know. Might have to subscribe to our own Patreon.
Oh, that would be amusing.
I would still make Dana ship it.
Oh, that would be... Oh.
Okay, Chris. We are here to do a deck tech for listener Ravis. Do you want to start? We normally ask a bunch of questions when we do these. You want to kick it off with what he said?
Sure. As Max was saying, we ask a bunch of questions, ranging from meta to people that they play with to all sorts of other stuff. So usually where we start is we're really curious about the meta, because that helps us to decide exactly how we need to look at the deck. If I need to look at it to be weaker, or if I need to look at it to bump in power range. And Ravis tells us the meta ranges from a lot of people that have just put together decks to fairly optimized, but often they play to power, as we all do. We try to ask, where everyone wants to play at, so we're all on the same page. This deck is flying tribal with a scry draw value engine. Often put Ishai out to threaten someone from going off too hard, and use her as a lightning rod for early removal to save for Eligeth, I'm assuming is how you pronounce it, which is the giant new sphinx or whatever.
Correct.
The deck started as Livio and Eligeth build, but quickly became a flyers only build. It uses snow to use 2 powerful scry snow spells, and Ravis has also put in the Foretell for flavor and protection. I really do like Foretell a lot. I haven't really delved into it too much and looked it over and played it myself, so this is going to be something new for me.
Yeah, I've played against one Foretell deck. A friend of the show, Matt Birdie, put together a Reynard deck. I played against him a couple months ago, and it did cool things. It did cool Azorius things. So we'll see what this deck uses the Foretell mechanic for. Ravis also says, so the next thing we kind of say is, what are the weaknesses of the deck? And he says the deck either goes off and then struggles to kind of stay ahead of everybody, because then he becomes the number 1 target. It also does recoup from board wipes pretty well, but his biggest threat is it's a slower deck, so it's hard to keep up with the table if there are more aggro type decks there.
Okie dokie. I should assume that should be fairly easy. In Azorius, there's lots of things that can prevent that stuff from happening.
For sure. And then, of course, we ask about the budget, and Ravis says nothing single card over about $25 unless it's super worth it. His playgroup does have a if you own it, you can proxy it rule, so that's super cool. It does help make decisions on needing to buy a card. He did note that he does own a Teferi's Protection, and I know it's better than a lot of some of the cards in the deck, but he's chosen to keep it out and in favor of the Foretell cards to keep with the flavor aspect of the deck.
Makes sense. So Speaking of proxies, we held a 1v1 commander tournament on November 7th, which was, we're going on a week now, and we had 16 people show up for it.
That's a good turnout.
everyone agreed that proxying dual lands was fine, as long as you owned them. So what they did was everyone had their dual lands in top loaders and sleeves, and then they had them proxied inside the deck with the new, you know how Magic has those new flip cards that are white on one side and normal on the back, and they all proxied them on those, and everyone agreed to it. Like, there was no huffing and puffing, there was nothing from anyone, and I was absolutely shocked about that. And I think it's because people are starting to realize, hey, you know what? You were able to get your hands on them. You don't want them ruined. Go for it. It is what it is type of thing.
Right, and even in a singleton format, at a competitive level like that 1v1 tournament, is a dual land isn't going to make the biggest difference in your outcome. You know, comparing to proxying a mana vault or a mana crypt or something like that.
Yeah, it was just, I was very shocked that everyone just was like, yep, that's fine. And I'm just like, okay. I'd still be shuffling mine and riffle shuffling it and just watching you guys just cringe, and it wouldn't bother me at all. But
exactly. Okay, Chris, let's jump into this deck. So this is a partner deck. I have a couple partner decks. Do you have any partner decks?
I keep looking at all the partners. Like, every time I go online and I'm looking at decks and stuff, I look at partners, and I have yet to find two that really jump out at me that want me to build them. Because I was going to turn my Persistent Petitioners deck into partners, but I found a better commander, so it's going that way now. And I want to build one really bad, but just have not found one yet to do it. So I might actually take the approach of commander with a companion and try it that route.
There we go. That's a cool idea. So this deck is led by Ishai, Ojutai Dragonspeaker, who was from the original partner commander deck, so what, 2016?
Something like that.
The Atraxa time, we'll call it that. Ishai is a 1/1 flyer, and whenever an opponent casts a spell, you put a +1/+1 counter on Ishai. And of course, it just has partner. And this is partnered with Eligeth, Crossroads Augur. It's 4 blue for a 5/6 flyer, and it says if you would scry a number of cards, draw that many cards instead. That seems really powerful.
That seems extremely powerful.
So Chris, like always, how about we start with the land base?
Lands. So we have 35 of these lands. And the website that we're using is Moxfield. And Moxfield is letting me know that there is actually 36 because there is an MDFC in this deck somewhere. Not sure which one it is yet, but when I find it, I'll let you all know.
I can comment right now, there is a Sajiri Shelter in the instance, which is also a white source on the backside.
All right, well, there we go. We found it right away. That works. So out of the 35 lands, we have Castle Vantress, Command Beacon, Command Tower, Emergence Zone, Ghost Quarter, Glacial Floodplain, Glacial Fortress, Hallowed Fountain, Hengegat Pathway. Hengegate. It is. I'm so tired, everyone. I'm terribly sorry about that. I totally butchered that one. Irrigated Farmland, Port Town, Prairie Stream, Reliquary Tower, Snow-Covered Island, which is 11 of them. And then we have Snow-Covered Plains, which has 9 of them. A Temple of Enlightenment, and a Zalfiran Void.
Yeah, that's a super solid land base. 35 normal lands. We have that one MDFC over in the instance. 20 snowlands between the basics and the glacial floodplain. That's a lot of snowlands.
Yes, it is.
Is there anything about this land base you like, don't like, or would change?
I like the land base pretty well. I mean, 36 with MDFC, so 35. I'm not sure how often you cast the MDFC. I have yet to play spell-based MDFCs in my commander decks. I use the land-based MDFCs, you know, you can choose which land color on both sides.
Yep.
Like the Hengegate Pathway. Yep, like that one. I don't know, I think I would almost want to up this land count a little bit. We'll go through artifacts and see exactly how many rocks are in here. And I'm scrolling through it quick right now. It doesn't look like a whole lot. So, pending on how I'm looking at everything else, with this higher cost on your one commander and a couple of other cards, maybe I would bump it up 37 lands or so. I know that when Dana and I have discussed his Sphinx deck, which this deck reminds us of, we discussed that before we started, but he is running higher lands because he needs more mana consistently to pump out the bigger spells. So I wonder if that could be an issue as well.
Yep, that was kind of my thought exactly. This deck reminds me a lot of Dana's Sphinx Tribal deck. It reminds me of my Dramoka deck, although there's no green and I can look past that because Azorius is my second favorite color combination. Yeah, I definitely think having at least 36 lands, not counting that MDFC minimum, would probably make me feel a little safer with this deck, but I agree, 37 is probably the sweet spot, plus that MDFC.
since you want the deck as Scry and Fly, I know that you're not a huge fan of the name of it, and I couldn't come up with a better one either. There is another blue land, and its name is escaping me, but I know it comes into play, and you can Scry 3 when it comes into play. It's a blue land that comes into play.
Halimar Depths doesn't say Scry on it.
Oh, it doesn't?
I believe it says look at the top 3.
Dang lands not letting me Scry.
When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 3 cards of your library, then put them back in any order. So you're doing something a little different than Scry.
Yeah. Okay, never mind. I was so hopeful.
It was the first one I wrote down in my notes, and I'm like, I don't think that actually says Scry.
I was so hopeful. Breaking my heart. My poor heart. I guess what we could maybe discuss then is maybe a war room then or something like that. Something to get a little bit of card draw engine going off of lands. I mean, there are so many good lands out there, and when you're in 2-color, you can definitely start playing, more utility lands over colored lands as well. So, something to, keep in mind, take a look at that. Maybe even when we go to artifacts, I have an awesome artifact I can suggest then that would actually help with this too.
Awesome. So for me, the 2 lands that I think would go great in this deck are Deserted Beach. This is the new blue-white dual land from Midnight Hunt.
Okay. That's one they come into play untapped if
you have 2 or more lands.
2 or more lands. Yes.
They're the reverse slow lands, or the reverse fast lands, or whatever they were called. And I think that's probably easily swappable for something like your Port Town. I'm not a big fan of these reveal a land type to make it come in untapped. You're probably going to have better luck bringing in that Deserted Beach in untapped more often than, revealing a plains or an island from your hand with Port Town.
True.
My other suggestion would be Mystic Sanctuary, just because there are a lot of great instants in this deck, and you have enough islands in this deck where I think you're going to bring it in untapped more often than not, just to get a little bit of graveyard recursion going on.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, there's a couple of them I'm not a huge fan of, like Emergence Zone. I'm not a huge fan. I do like the ability to go into instant speed if need be. I would rather have like a Planeswalker, like a little Teferi, to do something like that and saving my land base for more needed things, per se. I don't like sacrificing a land for a one-of shot like that unless it's like a Ghost Corridor or something like that you're destroying something as well. So that's just my preferred base. A lot of people would probably argue that with me because they love being able to do stuff at instant speed, but I'd rather have a recurring source of it than have it just one shot and go.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, but there are some creatures that we'll get to that should have flash and don't. I think that's why Emergence Zone is in this deck, is just to get those creatures out that have really cool ETB effects.
Okay, makes sense.
Awesome. So where should we move on to next, Chris? You were talking artifacts. Let's just jump right over there.
Sure, let's jump into the artifacts. There are 9 of these artifacts. We have an Arcane Signet and an Azorius Signet, Cold Steel Heart, Crystal Ball, Kefnet's Monument, Replicating Ring, Soul Ring, Thought Vessel, and Wayfarer's Bauble.
So the only one I'm not a fan of in here is the Kefnet's Monument. It's probably in here for the cost reduction, not maybe the Frost Titan effect of, when you cast a creature, target creature an opponent controls doesn't untap during its untap step.
Yep.
This doesn't actually tap the creature, though. If it tapped it and put that effect on it, I think it'd be great in this deck because you already have flyers, so you're just going to tap down any flyers that are in your way.
Yes.
But this doesn't do the tapping. You have to select something that might already be tapped. And I'm sure there are situations where that works great, but I don't know. I would rather be able to say, nope, you can't block with that Archangel Avacyn or something like that.
Yeah, no, a card like that, I would definitely look at those medallions, I think they are.
Ooh, yeah, but they're so expensive.
I know they're expensive, but they did, all of them except for one of them, I think, saw a reprint in the Commander sets. So if you've been playing Commander for quite a while and have picked up the precons, you probably have one.
Yeah, the 2 that, and they are on the list. So, I mean, the 2 that haven't been reprinted outside of the list were the blue and the white one. All the other ones have been reprinted.
I thought the blue one was reprinted in Commander 2016 or 2015 or something like that, yeah.
They all got reprinted in 2014. The blue one was also printed on the list.
Okay.
The white one was in 2014. All the others have been reprinted in some sort of Commander product, whether it's a precon or a anthology. And same goes for the black one. The black one also hasn't had a reprint lately.
Yes. So that's the other reason, I was just suggesting that is because maybe that's why this is in here, is because Rav can't get his hands on one of those, so this is doing the same thing. But this only does creature spells, so I would try to trade whatever, if you really want the cost reduction, if it really works wonderful for the medallion, because it reduces the spells of all that color instead. Unless it is for the Frost Titan effect, which would be very interesting. Very, very interesting.
Right. I agree.
So my thought went, why not put an expedition map in here? So probably your most powerful land that you have is Castle Vantress. The ability to 4-mana scry 2, which then with Eligeth out is a 4-mana draw 2 every turn. So if you can find that land more consistently when you have Eligeth out, that would be wonderful. Or just going for any land that you could possibly need. If you need the Emergence Zone for whatever shenanigans you're doing, or the Zephyran Void, to just pop off and, okay, I already have my castle out, so let's go get something that's just going to give me a immediate scry when I put it in the battlefield, or the tower, or not the tower, but the temple. Anything like that could be wonderful. So I try to, especially in a deck that doesn't have a lot of options for stuff like that, having another one in there to go for lands would be nice.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. That expedition map is a great idea. Otherwise, I love this artifact package. It's just mana.
Yep, no specialness to it. Crystal Ball gives you the scry, but even if that's without Eligeth out, the ability to scry looking for things for your next turn is huge too.
Yeah, and it's scry 2, so 1 mana to scry 2 is huge. That could find you that land. It could find you, your Swords to Plowshares. It just could find you a lot of answers quickly.
Yes.
Okay, Chris, where should we move on to next?
How about we just go down the row and we'll go right into enchantments, because there's only a few of those sitting there.
Okay. There are 6 enchantments. There's an Eyes Everywhere, Merit Lage's Slumber, Monk Class, Monologue Tax, Reconnaissance Mission, and Smothering Tithe. So for those that don't remember, Eyes Everywhere is 2 and a blue, and it's at the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1, and it has an activated ability for 5 and a blue. Exchange control of Eyes Everywhere, and target non-land permanent activates this ability only at the time you could cast a sorcery. And then the other one in here that I'll read is Monk Class, because that's fairly new. It's blue and a white. The first chapter is the second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast. You can level it up for blue and a white, and then when it becomes level 2, return up to 1 target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And then you can level it up to level 3 for 1 white-blue, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library. For as long as it remains exiled, you may cast this card from exile as long as you've cast another spell this turn.
Okay, I see where it's going with this. Now, while I like the ability to cast multiple spells, I don't really think that this deck is built to do that. I'm going to be completely honest.
I definitely agree. I think if I'm casting multiple spells a turn in this deck, it's a creature and an instant, or a creature and a sorcery. I'm not casting 2 5-drop creatures in a turn in this deck.
Yes. It's such a good card, though. I really like the ability to pop it to level 2 to, return a non-land permanent or whatever, and you're still retaining the second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast type of thing. Yep. So I do like that. But I have noticed in Commander, when you start getting towards the late game and you're casting 2 or 3 spells a turn, you get blown out much faster if someone's just sitting back and playing the game slower. And that's what I always worry about. And while, yes, we were told that you can rebuild fairly easy with this, I don't know if I'd really want to once my key pieces are on board. Especially if the other player has not been doing too much, I'd rather try to play it slow. And it's one of these cards I feel like is a trap that you're going to fall into, where you start jamming multiple cards per turn and then not actually getting anywhere when everyone just keeps destroying it type of thing. At least in our meta, that's usually how things end up playing out.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Out of all of these enchantments, Monk Class and honestly Merit Lage's Slumber are the 2 I'm not a fan of. I can understand Merit Lage just because of the 20 plus snowland, so you're going to get that scry every time you play a land, essentially.
Yep.
The Monk Class, though, is the one I for sure would cut, and I have something to replace it with.
Sweet. What you got?
Retreat to Coralheim.
Oh, that's from Battle for Zendikar, correct?
Battle for Zendikar. This has a landfall ability. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, choose 1. You can tap or untap target creature, or you can scry 1. So, if you have Eligeth out, you play your land, and it's any land, you draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 1 more mana than Monk's Class. It's 2 and a blue.
Yep, which isn't horrible by any means, because you're not restricted to the double-colored pip. So if you are stuck only on blue mana, because I have seen that even though you have that many white pips in the deck where you just get stuck on blue for some random reason, or someone has is it Carpet of Flowers? No, whatever the green enchantment is that you can only choose one color,
Hall of Gemstone.
Yeah, you could run into something like that where you're still allowed to do other stuff in the game then.
Mm-hmm. Otherwise, I love this enchantment suite. I like the Eyes Everywhere. I like the Monologue and Smothering Tithe just for more mana. And then, of course, Reconnaissance Mission. You're running a deck with all flyers. You might as well get some value off of them hitting people in the face and drawing cards.
Exactly. I do like the Eyes Everywhere too. 3 mana, just scry 1. But the ability to swap that with target non-land permanent, if, you absolutely have to, why not? I mean, because it just sits there, if that gets out in the early game, it just sits there and everyone will forget about it. And then all of a sudden someone jams, like we'll say a Velomachus or something, out. And you're just like, okay, you swing. Cool. Yeah, you did that. My turn. Yep. Now I'm going to take your Velomachus. And then now it's mine. So what's up?
Right.
I mean, that just seems really good if needed type of thing. So I love modular abilities like that. And they don't coincide together. Like, because you want it for the scry, you're not actually doing anything with exchanging control, but if ever needed, you have that modular ability to use.
Yep. When I was originally going through this deck, my first instinct was, geez, Thassa, God of the Sea would be great in this deck because it essentially does what Eyes Everywhere does for the same mana value. But on top of it, it could become a creature, which doesn't fly, so I understand why it probably isn't in the deck. But the other modular ability on Thassa is you can pay 1 and a blue to make something not be blocked. So you can use that on your opponent's stuff. You can use it on your own things in case you do run into an army of flyers across the table. You can start, spending your mana and poking through.
Agreed.
But she doesn't fly, so I understand.
Poor Thassa. Getting all hated out because she ain't got the wings.
She God of the Sea, not God of the Air.
Even though she's as big as a flyer. I mean...
Okay, how about the instants, Chris?
So we have 15 of these instants. We have Behold the Multiverse, Calculated Dismissal, Cosmic Intervention, Cyclonic Rift, Disenchant, Graven Lore, Mana Drain, Mystic Reflection, Path to Exile, Saw It Coming, Sejiri Shelter, Sky Whaler Shot, Sudden Substitution, Swords to Plowshares, and Teferi's Time Twist.
That's a lot of instants, and a lot of these are where the foretell abilities come in. So something like Behold the Multiverse, you scry 2, then draw 2, but you can foretell it and pay 1 in a blue instead of the 3 in a blue. So it turns out being the same thing, but you can do it at your own will versus always worrying about needing 4 mana. Cosmic Intervention, I need to take that off my notes because apparently it's already in the deck. This is the pseudo kind of Teferi's Protection, where if your stuff hits the graveyard, you can bring it all back type of stuff.
Yep.
Graven Lore, it's one of those snow spells that Ravis brought up in his notes to us. It's 3 blue, scry X, where X is the amount of snow mana spent to cast this spell, then draw 3 cards. So, it's all snow mana in the deck. Draw 5 plus 3, draw 8 for 5 mana. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Thinking that Eligeth is out. Mana Drain, just a nice, solid, hard counter. Those are my favorite type of counter spells to run. What are your thoughts on Mystic Reflection?
So Mystic Reflection reads, choose target non-legendary creature. The next time one or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature, and you can foretell as 1. I think that's very interesting. I don't know if it's used as protection or if it's used as, going crazy with your side, and I don't think it's crazy with your side. I think it's probably more for protection. So you're playing against an aggro deck. I mean, this is how I would end up playing it more than likely. You're playing against something that's playing fast, and you see them cast 1 and they have a whole bunch of mana open. You're like, okay, they're going to cast more creatures, so I'm going to cast this and choose this creature, so then all those other creatures enter as copies of that, so you don't have to worry about other random crap happening. So maybe that's what it's used for. Other than that, I could see it probably as a one-of, as you're playing off a monk class to cast multiple spells to drop 2 things, and not quite sure what 2 would go out. I'm not sure if I like it all that much, though. It doesn't seem really like it plays into the whole theme of flyers that are scrying away, and reading the pages of books and stuff like that, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I definitely kind of am in the same position you are. I would like to hear from Ravis about what they use this card for primarily, because there's a good chunk of legendary creatures in this deck and non-legendary, so there are some good targets. But do you really want your Dragonlord Ojutai coming in as a copy of Arguri Owl that type of thing. So I think it's extremely situational and, like you said, Chris, probably more defensive than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I could see it if you're doing it like that. You're jamming like 2 creatures out to become Augury Owls with Eligeth out, just to draw the cards, and then at the end of the turn they turn back into their other creatures because they don't have ETB effects. But with the, quite a few ETB creatures and all that kind of limits what you're doing, so it could be a dead card half the time. And that's what I always worry about, is having a card that's dead majority of the time in your hand.
Correct. So, Chris, is there anything in here you would like to change or swap out or add?
I mean, I'm looking right now, and quite a few of these cards have Foretell, or they have a couple of protection things on them.
Or they scry.
Yeah, or they scry. That's a big thing. So I'm looking at, Saw It Coming, for instance, is a counterspell that you can foretell, so it's going to cost you 5 mana to use it if you're going to foretell it. Or you could just run, there's a couple of counterspells out there that cost the 3 mana of what Saw It Coming originally costs to just get a counter target spell and scry. I'm trying to think. There's the one from original Theros block, and I can't even think of the name of it right now. I see the picture.
Dismiss.
I think it's Dissolve.
That one too.
What it is. Yep. That gives you the scry as well. And I think that's might be, I love Foretell, that you're trying to put this in, but I think we have to choose to go one route or another and maybe go hard into it, so then the deck plays consistent every time. And maybe that's where I would run into issues, is with that in the spell package.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of these Foretell, specifically the counter spells, are just kind of fancy cancels,
Yes.
And we love cancel here. We can say that because Dana's not on this episode. So it's kind of one of those, is paying a little more mana for a cancel because you're foretelling it worth making sure nobody knows it's a counter spell? Is it much different than casting it out of your hand versus just laying it on the table face down?
Yeah. Now, while it is really nice to be able to foretell a bunch of cards out on the table and then have them at any point, if you can refill your hand type of thing. Say it's towards the late game, you have Eligeth out, you have a bunch of scry outlets, but you don't have Reliquary Tower or anything. So, you need to pitch some cards out of your hand, but you don't want to discard them, but you want to draw a bunch of cards because you're digging for something else. I mean, that is really nice to do too, because no one can interact with them. So that's a good positive on that aspect. But I don't know if it really feeds into what the deck's trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I can see that. So I have a few things that I found that I think would go great in the instant slot. The first being Generous Gift. I think this is a great replacement for Disenchant. 1 more mana to destroy anything.
Agreed.
And those are pretty easy to get now since they were reprinted in Commander Legends, and I think they were reprinted into something else, but they're easy to get, and they're relatively cheap.
Yes.
Opt. Opt is a great 1 mana, scry 1, draw 1.
Interesting. Yes, that is very good, very good.
Some of my other suggestions are Deliberate. This is 1 in a blue, you scry 2, then draw a card.
Okay, I like that.
And here's a counter spell that I think is slightly better than Calculated Dismissal. So Calculated Dismissal is from Magic Origins. It's 2 in a blue, and it's counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. But it also has Spell Mastery, where if there are 2 or more instants or sorceries in your graveyard, scry 2. There's a card called Condescend, and it's X in a blue, and you counter target spell unless opponent pays X, and you scry 2. I think the fact that the scry 2 is not conditional on having stuff in your graveyard might be slightly better. So yeah, you're paying 4 mana instead of 3 to do the same thing as Calculated Dismissal, but you also have some flex room where they play their Soul Ring on turn 2 and you have 3 mana, you can just counter their Soul Ring and you still get the scry type of thing.
Yes, that is actually really good.
And then my final counter spell is just Memory Drain. It's 2 blue, counter target spell, scry 2.
Okay, that is really good there too. 4 mana is a little hefty.
It is, but I mean, compared to what we might be paying if we try to foretell a bunch of these, it comes out the same.
True.
And it's a hard counter. I tried to find things that are just counter anything versus counter creatures or non-creature spells.
Okay. I can get behind that. Usually when I run a counterspell package, my mindset always goes to the most efficient of them that are just hard counters. So like you're just your basic counterspell. I already see mana drains in here. Stuff along those lines, Arcane Denial, stuff like that. Just for the mana intensity of what the rest of the deck's doing, it's nice to be able to cast the cheaper counter spells instead of, taking the turn off to hope that you can counter something.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think knowing that this deck probably is able to play with all different decks in their meta, maybe we don't want that powerful of a counterspell package.
I could get behind that too. I personally don't like counterspells in Commander. I can see, the mana drain, Force of Wills or Force of Negations or something like that are free spells. I know they're expensive. I can see those types of cards just because they do so much for what they are that they can be used, because they're instant speed for the forces. You can just pitch cards. So you can tap out to do other stuff and you can just pitch them. Mana drain just nets you a whole bunch of mana. I think Spell Crumple, is that the other one that does a whole bunch of mana or something like that?
I
Spell
think
Swindle.
So. Spell Swindle, yeah.
Yep. I mean, stuff like that is what I like because you're getting more versatility other than just countering.
Yeah, agreed. Any other things to say about the instants in this deck, Chris?
Not really. You did touch on the Disenchant. That was the big one that had caught me off too, because there are, in my opinion, better outlets for that type of what it's doing. While it is really good 2 mana, just destroy one thing, it is what it is. It does it well, and there's a reason the Disenchant has been reprinted 50 million times.
Yep.
So, I mean, other than that, I really like the rest of it. Maybe a little bit more removal could be put in, because white does have a wonderful package of removal spells. So,
and so does blue. Blue has stuff like Pongify and Rapid Hybridization, so there are definitely options for straight up removal in these colors.
Yeah, and the thing I like about Pongify and Rapid Hybridization too, instant speed 1 blue. If someone does have a flyer on the other side of the battlefield, you can straight up just destroy it. Yes, you're giving them a 3/3 or whatever. I do believe they're both 3/3s. But that creature does not have flying. So you're just still coming in with flyers, and you're just like, okay, if you want to hit me back for 3, whatever, I'm hitting you for 6 with 2 flyers or something next turn type of thing.
Awesome. So let's move on to the sorceries. There are 8 of them.
Indeed there are.
So we have a Doomscar, a Mystic Speculation, Preordain, Ravenform, Serum Visions, Spectral Deluge, Starnheim Unleashed, and Time Wipe. So we have a couple board wipes, some creature makers, and a bunch of stuff that scries.
Yes, indeed. I actually like them all. I do like them all. That's so good.
Yeah. Spectral Deluge is super cool because it's 4 blue, or you can pay the 2 to foretell it and pay 1 blue, so it's a little cheaper. And it says return each creature your opponents control with toughness X or less to its owner's hand, where X is the number of islands you control. Well, there are 12 islands in this deck when you start counting all the dual lands. More than that, 15.
Yes, there are 15 of them. Wow, yeah. That is really good. So, I mean, all you need is usually around the 7 mark to hit majority of things that are on the battlefield, because there's not many creatures out there that people are playing that have 8 toughness. I mean, unless you're playing against some weird big beater. I mean, you might have the crazy green dinosaur, I can't even think of its name right now, that's a 12/12 and something like that. So, I mean, yeah, you might just get, hosed by that. But overall, you're bouncing everything else.
Yeah, I totally agree. How do you feel about Starnheim Unleashed? So this is 2 white, create a 4/4 Angel Warrior creature token with Flying and Vigilance. If this was foretold, create X of those tokens instead, and the foretell cost is XX white.
I'm not really a fan of it. Honestly, since you're playing a scrying deck, I'd probably rather play the Miracle one. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. I know I played it before, but the ability to just flip it off the top for Miracle cost of X and a white and create X of those creatures is huge, especially when your deck's built around doing the scry already.
Yeah, so you're talking about Entreat the Angels. Its regular casting cost is XX white, but you can Miracle it for X white.
Yep.
My only hesitancy, because I thought the same thing, is if Eligeth is out, you don't scry. It's a replacement effect.
True.
So if it's been out a few turns, you actually aren't going to see Entreat coming. That's the only issue I would have with putting Entreat in for Starnheim Unleashed.
Okay, I can see that too. So it's still X and like 3 white or something like that, right?
Its Miracle is X white. So it's...
I'm thinking original casting cost.
Oh, yeah, double X, triple white.
So you're paying 2 additional white to do the same ability if you do draw it, but having the upside of having Miracle.
Yep.
Or 4 mana for 1. I mean, it's kind of a horse apiece either way, the way that I'm seeing it. So I still personally, I'd rather have Entreat because of the option of scrying it if you don't have Eligeth out. Because you could scry into it in, the early game and just keep scrying it, however you need to, and then just drop it down and maybe make only like 3 of them or something like that. And then drop Eligeth after that type of thing. I mean, that could be an out, something along those lines as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think it probably just comes down to preference.
Agreed.
I did have a couple suggestions, though, for sorceries that would be good in here, but nothing that would turn this deck, up a huge power level increase. The first being Winged Words. It's a sorcery for 2 and a blue, but if you control a flyer, it's reduced by 1, so it's 1 in a blue to draw 2 cards.
That's pretty good.
I think that was reprinted in like Core Set 20 or Core Set 21. It's been printed a couple times.
Okay.
But it's a solid 2 mana, draw 2 if you have a deck full of flyers. The other one is very similar to Graven Lore. This is Ugin's Insight. It's 3 blue, scry X, where X is the highest CMC of permanents you own, then draw 3.
Yes.
So, I mean, just looking at some of your creatures, you have a couple 6-mana creatures, you have a 6-mana commander. So I definitely think that's worth trying at least, because 5 mana to draw 9 is awesome if Eligeth is out.
Doesn't Jace have a card too that does similar to Ugin's Insight, where I thought it was 5 mana, where it's scry 3, draw 3?
There's Jace's Ingenuity is just draw 3 for 5.
Is that what it is?
At
okay.
instant. I think that's what you're pro.
Yeah, that might be the one that I was thinking of. I thought there was another one with the scry. Because I have played Ugin's Insight before because I love the ability to scry early on and get the draw off of it, which is huge.
There's 4C, that's scry 4 and draw 2.
I mean, there's a bunch of really good ones like that because you have like Glimmer of Genius, they're right all in the same mana cost. They give you the scry first and then the draw.
There's also the one from Strixhaven Multiple Choice where it's X and a blue. If X is 1, scry 1 and draw. If X is 2, you may choose a player. They return a creature they control to its owner's hand. If X is 3, create a 4/4 blue and red elemental creature token. And then if X is 4, do all of the above.
Yep. So Max, I found a land.
What land did you find?
So as I'm scrolling through these scrying things, I ran into a land called Isolated Watchtower, which I don't believe is in the deck.
Oh, that's from one of the commander decks, isn't it?
Yes. So this card is for taps for colorless, and then you tap 2 and you can scry 1. Then you may reveal the top card of your library. If a basic land card is revealed this way, put it on the battlefield tapped. Activate this ability only if an opponent controls at least 2 more lands than you. Since blue-white has a lackluster, way of jamming lands in the battlefield, and a lot of times you will play against people who are ramping a little bit faster than you, and you are not playing a land tax or anything like that. I mean, you do have monologue tax, but you're not playing an actual land tax. This could be an outlet of some sort.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Good call. I'm surprised we both missed that originally.
Yeah, I was very surprised as I'm looking for another card and no, surprise, here's one that you missed.
So anything else about the sorceries, Chris?
No, I really do like the sorcery spell package. The one thing that I would do different is I think I would probably try to run like a Wrath of God or a one of those effects. Whether it's a 4-mana one or one of the 5-mana ones to destroy, multiple things, or even Austere Command at 6 mana, just to have a little bit more. While yes, I know there's Doomscar and Time Wipe, I want at least 1 or 2 more because you are playing a slower, bigger beater deck. So the ability to, okay, if I sacrifice 1 creature of mine to wipe out 12 creatures of my, my 3 opponents, that is a perfect trade. In my opinion, that's perfect, and then that forces them to have to rebuild more than what you're actually rebuilding.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I love Austere Command because I can at least hit your artifacts and enchantments if you need those gone. There's stuff like single combat where you can keep Eligeth and sacrifice everything else. Even if you are looking to gain some life, maybe put in Fumigate.
Fumigate. That's not a good name for a card that gains you life, though. I mean, you think it's more of like a destroy all like creatures of power 1 or less or something like that, because it's like killing ants or something.
Well, and that's what the art is just them killing the gremlins, so... Yeah, so we're going to move on to a happier subject. So let's talk about the one and only Planeswalker in the deck.
Jace Mirror Mage, eh? So, Jace is a 3-mana Planeswalker. We have 1 colorless pip with double blue. And Jace comes in with 4 loyalty. But Jace also has a kicker of 2. Now, when Jace Mirror Mage enters the battlefield, if Jace was kicked, create a token that's a copy of Jace Mirror Mage, except it's not legendary, and its starting loyalty is 1. So you can make multiples of this. Jace's ability has a +1 to scry 2. And Jace's 0 is draw a card and reveal it. Remove a number of loyalty counters equal to that card's convert a mana cost from Jace Mirror Mage. Obviously, this card is in here for the Scry ability, and if drawn late game, you just kick out a whole bunch of them, which is quite amusing, because then people are like, oh, we hate Planeswalkers, now there's 30 of them, how do we kill them all?
You can kick this multiple times?
Can you?
No, it's just a single kick.
Oh, well, I would kick it multiple times to see if anyone caught me on it.
And that's how we break the rules here at Commander Central, everybody. So I originally saw this and like, geez, I know another Jace that lets you scry and draw for 5 mana. But the fact that you get 2 of these, I think, is what makes it better than the Jace, Detective Jace, the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, the one from...
Unraveler of Secrets. There we go.
Shadows of Innistrad.
Yeah.
I can get behind that, but I do believe that Jace has... its other abilities are better than this one's.
Yeah, because the other one is bounce, and his alt is you get an emblem with counter someone's first spell every turn.
I think the other abilities are what makes that one better overall. While yes, it is 5 mana. So you got to choose between that or playing one of your creatures. I think the other abilities, so it could be a removal spell, or you could get the scry. I think you get a scry and a draw off of it.
Yeah, the +1 is scry 1, then draw. -2 is return target creature to its owner's hand. And the ultimate at -8 is you get an emblem with whenever an opponent casts their first spell each turn, counter it.
Yep. I still personally would like to play a Little Teferi, because Little Teferi allows you to dodge instants, because people cannot play instant speed spells, at instant speed. They can play them during sorcery speed, but not at instant speed. It also gives you flash to your next sorcery speed spell that you cast each turn. Or you can bounce something to draw a card. The ability at 3 mana is just, I think it's way too powerful, and I think everyone keeps overlooking it in Commander. Now, I could be horribly wrong with that, but if I were to build a Azorius deck, it would probably be one of the first cards that I consider throwing in it, and just see how it works.
Yeah, definitely worth a try. Okay, Chris, let's get to the big chunk of the deck, which is the flying creatures.
Sure thing. We have 24 creatures within this deck, and as we were told, they're all going to be flyers. So we'll start off right from the top and zip right through them and right down to the bottom. So we got a Chroma, Vision of Ixidor, Angel of Jubilation, Arbiter of the Ideal, Augury Owl, Baneslayer Angel, Barago, King Eternal, Dragonlord Ojitai, Empyrean Eagle, Ethereal Valkyrie, Glorious Protector, Jubilant Skybonder, Kanji Sky Warden, Kira, the Great Glass Spinner, Linvala, Shield of the Seagate, Pristine Skywise, Shabraz, the Sky Shark. Oh, I love this card. I wish it was better, but I love this card. Siani, Eye of the Storm, Skycat Sovereign, Steel Plume Marshal, Sunblast Angel, Thieving Skydiver, Thunderclap Wyvern, Timeless Dragon, and Watcher of the Spheres.
It's a lot of flyers.
A lot of flyers. I mean, it's very nice to see a deck that stuck true to its word of all flyers type of thing in here. And that's really what I like seeing. I'm
offended.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Do you still play Seedborn Muse?
I've never played Seedborn Muse in that deck.
Or not the Windborn Muse. That's one that I meant.
Yes, I play Windborn Muse. That flies.
I don't know if it's considered a flyer, though. It's like a human with like spectral wings or something.
You're thinking of Sarah Ascendant.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know about those cards, man. I might have to keep an eye on you.
Anything jumping out right away for you in the creature package here?
One that's missing, yes.
Which one?
So the card that I was thinking of that I think is missing is Cavalier of Gales for 2 colorless and 3 blue pips. So 5 mana overall. Yes, it's a little hefty because it's on the triple blue pips. But I have been watching someone play the red one, the white one. I think he's got the black one in Mardu. I could be wrong if he's got the black one or not. But hasn't been having an issue with this, with the colored pips. And the cards have actually been super powerful. So Cavalier of Gales is a 5/5 elemental knight with flying. When it enters the battlefield, draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards from your hand on top of your library in any order. That's cool and everything. Now, the big thing is when this dies, shuffle it into its owner's library, then scry 2. So you can be a little aggressive with this card because you don't care, because unless it gets exiled, it's going to go back in. So, and you get the scry out of it. I think it's a very powerful card. ETB effect, I mean, everything. It's a flyer, and this is what I would be looking for out of a flying tribal deck, is stuff that gives me multiple things when it enters the battlefield or dies.
Gotcha. No, that's a great call. Wasn't on my list. I definitely like the fact that, like you said, you can be super aggressive with it. That's huge. some of the ones I would like to see in this deck. So Ravas did mention that Akroma might be one that needs to get cut because a lot of the keywords aren't really distributed well throughout this deck. So
Yes.
yeah, everything gets flying, so there's +1/+1, but not a lot of stuff has vigilance or trample or, any of the keywords that Akroma's looking for. So my first idea, so if we wanted to keep Akroma, my first one would be add Angelic Field Marshal. This is a flyer with the Lieutenant keyword, and Lieutenant is as long as you control a commander, an ability happens. So Angelic Field Marshals it gets +2/+2 and vigilance, and all your other creatures gain vigilance. The fact that you have 2 commanders makes this very versatile because you can drop it if either one of your commanders is out.
Agreed. The other one that I was thinking of, and I don't remember the exact name of it, but it's out of Commander Legends, and it's a new owl that gives your commander ward, like ward 3 or something like that.
The one Dana runs.
Yes, that would be something I would consider too, because Eligeth is like your big engine. I understand that, that's the one that you want to protect. So why not have that ability? And even if Ishai's out there and you have a whole bunch of counters on there, and you do draw that card, and you give it ward as well, it's going to put target on your back pretty hard, but it's ability to protect, which is really, really nice.
Yeah, and we are talking about Easior, Ward Wing Familiar.
Yes.
Yep, spells your opponents cast that target one or more commanders you control cost 3 more.
Yep. So, it's just a protection thing where they have to kill off that. They can't single target your commander out. They have to board wipe it off, which is perfectly fine in my opinion. Waste a board wipe just to get rid of my 1 creature or 2 creatures. That's perfectly fine.
Yep, some other suggestions I have would be Angel of Invention. It's a 5 mana, 4/3, because we're going to make the assumption that you're putting the +1/+1 counters on Angel of Invention and not making the 2 servos, which don't fly.
Yep.
But it also is an anthem for all your creatures.
Yes, it is, and that's very, very good. So like I said, Shabra is a Sky Shark, cute card and everything. You get to draw a card, put a counter on it, gain a life. It's doing the same thing as what Isior is doing, per se, and you don't have any humans. You can't give target human gains flying. I would love to see someone try to trick the table and be like, I'm going to give Jace flying and see what they say, because he's a human and all that stuff, but I don't think that'd ever fly. That card I think is probably the weakest of them all. A 3/3 for 5 mana that's only working off, gets bigger, does stuff off of what, you're doing for like drawing cards, when you're not really built around per se drawing, you're more built around the scry aspect. So I just don't think it does quite enough in the deck.
So I'm going to counter you on that. I think it's perfect for this deck, because I think the goal of this deck is to always have Eligeth out. I think that's the goal. I think Ishai is that early game plan. Come turn 5 or 6, Eligeth needs to be out to get the engine going.
And then when you draw the cards, you put the counters on, so you get another big beater. I can see that too, yep.
And you gain life.
Yes.
So I definitely don't think this is something that comes out super early. I think it's something that comes out once Eligeth is out. I like it. I think it fits great. And it's a flying shark. Don't take that away from people, Chris.
I was going to suggest Shark Typhoon, too, in the enchantment slot, but there wasn't enough non-creature spells to really make it worth it.
What else? I have a few more creature suggestions here. Dream Trawler. It just gets bigger with every card you draw, and it always lets you draw at your combat.
Yep.
It is heavy on the pips, though, because it's double blue, double white, 2 generic.
Yeah, I was thinking of the other one. What's the one that comes into play, you draw 2, gain 2? You play it in Brago, I know that.
I do.
It's another flyer that just has, I do believe it's 5 mana too, or something like that for it. It is a good card. I don't know if it's something worth playing, but honestly, in blue-white, anything that lets you draw cards is worth it.
Some other things I have suggestion here is Kinjali's Sunwing. This is a flyer from Ixalan that also makes your opponent's creatures come in tapped. So a way to slow down your opponents.
Yeah.
My next one would be Pride of the Clouds. This is from one of the original Ravnica sets. It's blue and a white to cast. It's a 1/1 with flying, but it gets +1/+1 for each other creature with flying in play. So that's everybody, not just you. So that 2 mana 1/1 on turn 1, on turn 2 would be great. At 2 mana 10/10 on, turn 8 is even better. My next suggestion would be Redain, God of Worthy. This is from Kaldheim. I love this in my Dramoka deck because It's a way for the people that are my opponents that are running Snowlands, it makes them enter tapped. It's also a flyer, and it also has Vigilance, I believe. Yeah, it has Flying Vigilance. It's a 2/3 for 3, and if you really want to cast it for the artifact side, you get to reduce 1 damage that's dealt to you, and then whenever... It also kind of gives ward to stuff that you control.
Yep.
I have 2 more creatures that I think should be in this deck. The first one being Selfless Spirit. A nice 2 little 1/1 that you sacrifice to give all your creatures indestructible. And the final being Prognostic Sphinx. When it attacks, it's a 3/5 for 5. When it attacks, you scry 3. You can also discard a card to give it hexproof, and you tap it. But every attack, you scry 3, and if Eligeth is out, you draw 3.
Interesting. That is a very, very good card. I remember playing that in Standard.
I do have 2 that I think are kind of on the fringe, but would work well in this deck. The first one being Raynar, the Ever Watchful. This is the Foretell Commander, I guess. He was part of the Precon. It's a 2/3 for 4 with Flying and Vigilance. The first card you foretell each turn costs 0, and then whenever you exile 1 or more cards from your hand and or permanents from the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. So that's pretty good. It fits with the foretell thing. I just don't think you have enough foretell to make the rest of it worth it. And my final one is Magus of the Moat. I think this is kind of meta-dependent. It doesn't fly itself, but it makes all creatures without flying not be able to attack. I ran this for a while in Dromoka because it said the word flying on it. But again, that's kind of on your decision if you really want that type of protection against those faster decks in your meta.
Agreed.
So I do have some cards in here that I think for creatures could get cut for some of the stuff I've suggested. And this one's going to surprise you, Chris. Are you ready?
It's going to be Brago.
It's going to be Brago. I think Brago needs to go. There are not enough creatures in this deck that have ETB abilities. Sure, there's an Augury Owl. When it ETBs, you scry 3. There's a few others, but nothing like, you don't run Muldrifter. You don't run the card Chris was just talking about, that 5 mana blue-white, draw 2, gain 2 when it ETBs. So I think that is definitely one that could be cut. Also, it's a big nombo with Kira, Great Glass Spinner, because Kira cares about all spells and abilities, not just things your opponents cast. So if you were to target stuff with Brago, the ability just gets countered if Kira is out.
Yep, I agree with that. I didn't like Brago to begin with when I was reading through it, because you don't have much of the permanent base neither to just like flicker around. That's going to get you like exponential amounts of,
right,
good stuff type of stuff. That was definitely one on mine as well.
I also think Timeless Dragon could probably be cut. This is the 5 mana, 5/5 with flying, plane cycling, and Eternalize, so I guess you'd get it back. But it's just kind of a 5/5 flyer for 5. This seems like a draft card more than a EDH card. And then my final suggestion for a cut would be Thieving Skydiver. This is a 2/1 for 1 and a blue, and it has kicker of X, and X can't be 0. It's a flyer, but when it enters the battlefield, if it was kicked, gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost to X or less. If that artifact is an equipment, attach it to the Thieving Skydiver. I think there's this super, super small theme of stealing stuff in this deck with the Skydiver. There's the Sudden Substitution and Eyes Everywhere. Eyes Everywhere, I think, is just, it's an extra ability on the card that's being primarily used for scrying, but Sudden Substitution and Thieving Skydiver, this deck really isn't doing a lot of stealing, and so I think for sure Thieving Skydiver could be replaced with a bigger threat that is going to do more for you, such as Redain or Selfless Spirit. That's just my opinion.
Agreed. So another one that popped into my mind was, this one is Glenelendra Archmage. I saw this as I was looking for another specific card, which is Stratus Skydancer, right, Max? That's how you pronounce that?
Yes.
And both of them have abilities on them to, counter target spells. Or not spells, but non-creature spells, which are probably your bane, seeing how you're casting big creatures, and when you get wiped out, it's just annoying. So why not have some sort of protection in there? And they're both flyers. One you can megamorph, and one is just, you sacrifice and has persist and comes back. So, that's something that I would consider as well for a couple of the creatures that are just kind of like iffy type of thing. having more abilities like Kira is huge in a deck like this, and I've noticed that out of a lot of people who play big Azorius creatures is that they can protect them very well, which then becomes a nightmare for your opponents.
Yeah, no, any more ways to protect your stuff, especially because you are probably going to be the slower deck at the table. I agree. Any way you can find ways to slot that in is great. Gwenolander Archmage, does have the issue of once you use that second persist counter, it's done. So there's you get 2 uses out of it. I like it. You do have some stuff in here that lets you bounce some stuff, so there is probably ways you could get it back in your hand. But yeah, I think that's a great suggestion, Chris.
I really like cards like that because yes, you get to 2 uses out of it, but I look at that card as it is a 4 mana, well, we'll say technically 5 mana to counter something and just protect stuff. I don't ever consider it as, I want to beat with this creature. I don't want to keep it around forever. I want to force my opponent's hands. And they see it come out and they're like, okay, so now we need to force you to do this. So I want them to force as much resources into it as possible while I still, retain advantage over the game.
Yeah. Okay, Chris. Any final thoughts on Ravis's deck here?
I really like the deck a lot. I'm still not sold on Ishai. Like, I looked really hard to see if there's anything else that I could, swap in and out for that one. Because you had brought it up in the notes, like changing the name of the deck. And maybe, you just started trying Ishai over the other one. I do like that it's Azorius, because Azorius gives you the good protection suite in white. So, overall, I really like the deck as it sits. A few little tweaks here and there, and it'd probably be even more fun to play.
Yeah, I agree. This deck looks a lot of fun to play. It seems very similar to decks we've played before in our shops and online. And I agree, just some small fine-tuned adjustments might make this just be able to be at evenly consistent performance throughout the entire game.
Yep, and going forward, with sets, coming out, you're always going to get scry cards. So, building an Eligeth deck early and being able to figure out what needs to go in and what doesn't would really help in the long run.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Ravis, thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon and sending in your deck to get teched by us. And thank you to everybody else who supports us on Patreon or just listens every week and hits that thumbs up button or that like button. It means a lot and brings more visibility to the show. Our show editor is Rafael Garcia. You can find him on Twitter at Ursa Bearwalker. You can find Dana at Dana Roach. You can find myself at CMDRCentral_Max. And you can find Chris at YSquishy1. Our theme music is Retro Future Dirty by Kevin MacLeod, licensed via Creative Commons. And we will be back next week with an all-new show. Until then, I'm Max.
And I'm Chris.